Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Joe with Christina and Brooke. Today, we're going to talk about communication. And I think the three of us all agree with this. Please jump in. I love that you guys will tell me, no, you're wrong, actually, Christina. We don't all think this, but I think our common consensus here is that communication fixes everything. And Joe's probably going to debunk that right now. Perfect. Joe, get on me.
No. This is an interesting topic for a couple of reasons. If I were just like to pull the screen back a little bit and show how the sausage gets made. So typically we pick a topic, we don't talk about it. We pick a topic, we think about it throughout the week, give ourselves a couple days, then we come on and just go, right? We don't pre-plan it. We just identify our topic. This one, we picked this topic like 2 minutes ago. Right, so we haven't had a week to think about it. We haven't had a few days. It's just like right now on the spot. So communication fixes everything. It can, most of the time, I think, is where my mind went. So I think communication has the power to change so much. But there's one of the things that I thought of that is what adds that caveat of maybe most of the time. And I'll get to that in a second. So the two things though that came to mind. So one, I think one of the problems with communication is that it's hard. It's so difficult. And it's so difficult for so many reasons. And the place that my mind went, I think the group of people, and man, this is so telling, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this online, but the group of people where when it comes to communication that I have the highest sense of uneasiness with, I think is like my family, right? Where these are the people that in some way, and this is at the heart of it, in some way I've known the longest and should know me the best, but yet just because of life and all these weird dynamics we have in our family, where you sometimes have this thing where it's like, but do they really even know me at all? I don't know. Like I've grown so much and sometimes I still think that they think I'm this 17, 18-year-old. But all of that is to say is that communication sometimes isn't easy. It's not easy to find the right words. It's not easy to find or to even understand where the other person is and what they need to hear to either smooth things out or to better understand one another. So I think communication can fix everything, but a good starting point is just to kind of acknowledge that it's not easy. Right. It doesn't come naturally to a lot of us, at least not productive and constructive communication doesn't come naturally to some of us. Right. And then the second thing that came to mind, which the caveat of, does it fix everything though, is I think the hardest part of communication is that it's a two-way street. It's not just me. It's not just my words. I can say the perfect words. I can come from the best place. I can have the best intentions, which I think that should lead us to my message being perfect. Coming from a good place, I'm picking the right words. I think I know what I think I'm trying to do the right thing here. Yeah. And yet if the other person's not up for it, if the person that I'm communicating with, if their mind isn't where mine is, if we don't have the same goal, it ultimately might not fix anything. Right? There might be like an insurmountable and unclimbable wall that I'm trying to get over with my words that my communication is not going to let me get there. Not because of me, but because it requires a two-way street. Mm-hmm. I think I've had those experiences where I've gone into something being like, oh, I'm going to nail this, only to be like, dude, that person wasn't ready and they have no desire to fix this. They don't care. Mm-hmm. And in that example, my communication couldn't fix a thing. Because the way that I have it written down here is I only control what I control. Sure. There's only a part of this communication process that I can control. Ultimately, both people or whatever the dynamic is and who's communicating, everybody has to have a piece of ownership in that to fix everything. And if we start off there, communication fixes everything. If we're all coming together to fix things and we can solve anything.
So if we want to dig deeper a little bit on that, and I completely agree with what you're saying, what is your definition of fix? So you come to the table, right? And
great question.
You have something that you want to fix by communicating with the other person, right? And maybe that is what it is. So you communicated and that other person perhaps wasn't receptive, or they didn't have the words that you were hoping for, and being okay with this is your new mindset of the communication between the two of you, and allowing yourself to let go of whatever attachment you had So now you're more self-expressed, and this unresolved issue is resolved, and you move forward from that.
Yeah, I think that goes along with what Joe was saying, that they have to be ready for the communication and ready for the fix or the solve or whatever it is. Something else to consider. Hi. Hi, Javi. There he is. He's threw me all off guard, you guys. But something else to consider is just timing and how long communication takes, and choosing the right form of communication. Modes of communication can kind of mince words, especially if you don't know where the other person is coming from. So if you're communicating in a quick text and there's not a lot of there wasn't a lot of thought behind it. It was just like, boop, 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 boop. But they read it and internalize it as it was this like well thought out. It's like, oh, whoa, it wasn't that deep. It was just this. In which case, picking up the phone is what has to happen to fix whatever is going on.
Sure. And there are sentence starters out there to solve unresolved issues. And it starts with the person being vulnerable and basically sharing with other person that, they believed something about the situation, and that's not true. And the truth is that the impact was this, and what they want to create is possibilities of whatever it is, communication, clarity. And then, so like you said, the type of communication is really important. Your words that you choose is really important. And also what mode of communication, and when you're having that type of conversation face-to-face, on the phone, would always be better.
Yeah, and I can't get away from something, and you guys are all circling it and attacking it from different access points and different entryways, but I can't get away from something you said, because it was one of the things that I thought of that I put under the larger umbrella of like, man, communication isn't easy. One of the very specific things that I had in mind, I just couldn't find the words for it as clearly as you did, is that a part of what makes it so difficult is that having to identify, what do we mean by like fixing it? Like, what does it mean? Like, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? And what's the solution at which point I'm going to be like, what's the solution that I'm looking for? And whether or not that's the same solution that the other person's looking for.
Right.
And somehow doing that, like arriving at that in a way that allows me to let go if there's a conflict there, if
Right.
those two things aren't the same. If what I'm looking to get out of it is different than what somebody else is looking to get out of it, if our fix is different, how do I get myself in a headspace where I can let go and say, hey, but I've done my part. I've done the best that I can. And that has to be sufficient.
Yeah. Just being unattached to the results of the communication.
And how do I do that? How do we do that? I mean,
From a space of nothing, of emptiness, right?
Don't be human. Just
right.
don't.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Don't be a human being.
Don't just be stoic.
Right.
What we were talking about before. Yes. Sorry, I joked to viewers. Yeah.
No, but to me, that also goes back to something that Christina said that prompted like a very specific little movie to start playing in my mind about a scenario with me and somebody else over the last couple of years. Of like somehow like the emotional part of how do we have this conversation and be like how do we detach ourselves from it in a way that, especially when it's something that's emotional, and when something that we have a disagreement about whether it should be a phone call, whether it should be a face-to-face, or whether it should be an email.
Yeah, what if those needs don't align? What if I just need it to get the message out and I send a text, but you really need like a long conversation or a face-to-face visit? Sometimes time and space can create barriers to effective communication.
That is true.
Yeah, and also as best as we can, trying to be clear about, and maybe this is all just like a meta conversation, that if what we're doing, if we roll this into the process of how we communicate with others, right? Having this kind of this verbalizing, hey, what are we trying to accomplish? How are you dealing with this emotionally? Where I don't want to step on any toes, but I also want to make sure that I'm honest and upfront about this. I think maybe that could be a part of it as well. Because I know I've had conversations where I've gone into it thinking, hey, we're talking about this and things are going swimmingly. Then all of a sudden somebody like drops a bomb on your head. And it's like, wait, that just totally derailed me. I didn't know this was what we were doing here.
Right.
And maybe just a preemptive, I don't even know what that looks like, but that could have changed the dynamic of the conversation.
Right. I mean, communication can literally go in so many different ways, so many different tools, like you said. And the definition of communication is an exchange of information where both people are understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take that to the next level for a second. Communication, the other person's not understanding it. So how are you fixing the communication between the two of you? So at that point, do you let go and just be okay with where it's at and maybe come back to it and reflect at another point? Or do you just allow it to be what it is and move forward? I don't know. The tough call. This is really...
No, I love the person who's watching this like, okay, so what's the takeaway?
What's next?
What's step 1, 2, 3? What's the steps? Where's the tool? And it's like,
no,
this is
let's just gonna drop this on you and say it's exhausting, right? Thinking about that. As Brooke was speaking, I was like, okay, so you have to have a clear outline and a path and a vision before you communicate. But what if you don't know what you don't know, or you don't know what your vision is until you talk it out? And some people learn through communicating and come to a different understanding just through the act of communication. So complicated.
It is so complicated. It is.
I think if I took away one phrase, and it's not mine, I got it from, I think it might have been Brooke. I think if we were looking for like a starting point, like, all right, so all of those things are true, or maybe they're not, who knows? We're just having a conversation about it, but okay, so what now, right? I have this thing, there's this person that somebody watching this might say, oh, I'm thinking about this one person, I'm thinking about this one issue. I think a good starting place, Brooke, I think you're the one that used this word, is I think if we start from a place of vulnerability, of really being open to like, hey, I don't know if I'm right or wrong about this, but I want to talk about it. I want to communicate with someone, but to the place of having a willingness of being moved from where you're at. Right? Because I think sometimes we come in just very close-fisted. Like we want to talk and we want to be the one that drops truth bombs on people, and which, okay. But then ultimately, are we communicating, or are we just yelling at someone, or are we just talking at somebody, as opposed to like really having that exchange of information? And I think without that vulnerability, without the space of like, you know what, I'm open to being wrong here. I might vigorously defend my position, but at the end, I am open to like, I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to understand how you feel. I want to understand your points. And I think that's a good starting place. So maybe that's a good check. Like, hey, I'm about to have this conversation with somebody. I don't feel comfortable about it. It's not going to be pretty. Step one, do I feel vulnerable? Am I at a place where I'm willing to be vulnerable and open in a way that's honest, I think? I don't know.
Right. And then actually listen to what the other person is saying, and mirror maybe what they're saying, label what they're saying, identify their feelings so they feel like they're being heard. And then actually, take action with the words that they're saying, and not just, regurgitate it back to them.
Right. So those good active listening strategies. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
We communicated about communicating. Now we've done it all.
Whoa.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Brooke, did you have one more thing to add?
No, I was just saying communication is not easy, like you said. And, our minds even had different thoughts of what communication is, right? So it got us really uncomfortable in our conversation, and really taking a step back and thinking about what we wanted to share, because we had no idea where this one was going. So that's all I have to say about that.
I'm so glad we all communicated together today. It was a lot of fun. We always join together with openness, vulnerability, active listening. I love and adore both of you. Appreciate all of our listeners out there. And I hope you gained something from us and maybe you have some pointers for us. So drop them in the chat. Please, we're open to your suggestions. We love to learn. We want to learn and grow from you. Thank you so much.